Marks Washington here live from Xfinity Center as George Mason pulls off the upset tonight, beating Maryland 71-66. Please don't say it's an upset to Kim English, who has preached since he's gotten here that there is a process and there's going to be standards, and he used that word quite a bit. And the standards were followed tonight, especially on the defensive end. Maryland got off to the quick start, especially Dante Scott. Dante Scott was on fire in the first half. George Mason's defense picked up after they quit letting Maryland get 2 feet in the paint, which was the real problem. And Maryland's offense would open up in that first half because of that. But George Mason executed a little bit better. I'm sure they made a few adjustments that maybe they don't want to talk about, but they executed their defensive strategy much better. And by halftime, had taken a 1 point lead. And, this is a great win for George Mason on so many levels. First of all, it's really their first really close game. It was their first road game. You're playing a Power 5 school. You're playing a school that's ranked in the top 25, who was picked to finish very high in the Big Ten. I won't say it. I should say it. I will say it. Kim English did kind of hint at the fact that at times maybe there wasn't the friendliest whistle inside. And it did seem like this game had gotten very Big Ten-ish. And George Mason didn't really always get rewarded for driving the ball to the basket. But what they did get rewarded for was keeping their composure. As the game came down the stretch, there was an important portion where Ayala comes up timeout. He hits a three. Eventually hits another three. Next thing you know, it's 1 point lead with under 2 minutes left. And that's where George Mason could have fallen apart, being in this situation for the first time all season with this particular unit. Xavier Johnson had already fouled out. But what ended up happening is George Mason makes all the plays down the end, and they're the ones who keep their poise. Josh Oduro gets 2 baskets at the end of the shot clock in the last 2 minutes, finishing around the rim. And I'll say I was not in Coach Turgeon's post-game presser. I'll go back and look at it later. But I am really surprised that at the end that Oduro was not guarded by Dante Scott. When they came out the initial timeout, Dante Scott came out on Oduro, and I didn't know if that was going to be a permanent change coming down in the last minute. But instead, after the ball went out of bounds and George Mason inbounded the ball again, it went back to being Reese on Oduro, which, like I said, shocked me a lot. Thought that was the time that you would use Dante Scott in there. George Mason did a good job on Kuz Wahab, who was 3 for 4. I think Maryland kind of helped George Mason in that sense because they hardly threw the ball into him. And you understood in the first half because Dante Scott was so hot in the first half. But in the second half, I was a little shocked that they didn't throw the ball into him more. In fact, I was a little shocked that he didn't play more. He certainly did not play down the stretch, as Coach Turgeon ended up going with the freshman and Reese down the stretch, and not with Wahab. So this is like the second game in a row where he only has like 4 or 5 attempts. And the attempts really came from the perimeter guys. Ayala, who was good down the stretch, took 17 shots. Scott took 12, and a lot of that was in the first half. But Coach English brought up something that warrants saying, which was Xavier's job on Fats Russell. Fats Russell at the beginning of the game did get downhill. As the game went on, Fats didn't get downhill as much. In fact, he ended up being 1 for 7. And shooting percentage isn't always the best measuring stick of how effective you deal with Fats Russell. But I thought that tonight it was, because he could have been an orchestrator, like I said earlier in the game, where Maryland was getting 2 feet in the paint because they were getting downhill so much. The idea that Xavier Johnson did such a great job to keep Fats really out the paint, to limit his effectiveness, was great. Now, like I said, Johnson ends up fouling out, but the damage was done. Plus, you have to talk about the veterans. Devin Cooper made some huge shots. He ended up being 6 for 13 for 16. Obviously, the star of the night is Deshaun Schwartz, scoring 24, grabbing 9 rebounds, 6 for 10 from 3. And the funny thing about it was Mason was 12 for 24 from 3. I mean, that's just absolutely incredible. And Coach English said that he felt like they could have taken more threes, and he wanted them to take more threes, especially down the stretch, which is weird because you don't hear coaches say that. But this is the time that we're playing in now, and the time that we're coaching in now. English is a young coach. He subscribes to that. I have no problem with that, even though I'm not as young as Coach English is. And they did get some good looks. I don't think they lost composure once down in that last 3 or 4 minute stretch. big win for George Mason. First win ever over Maryland. I think it's first time in 10 years someone said that they had beaten a ranked opponent. And now you're going to see them tested again because they go back on the road 2 days from now to James Madison. So we'll see the maturity of this team. What sort of effort do you get when certainly there's going to be a target on your back because you're coming off a win at Maryland? It's a quick turnaround. We'll see what George Mason has. Something tells me that Kim English will have them prepared for it. But again, great win here from Xfinity Center. George Mason wins 71-66 over Maryland. We couldn't get the smiles off their faces. In fact, the locker room, we were outside the George Mason locker room, and it was as loud and party central as you can imagine. I'm telling you, congratulations, George Mason, Kim English. Again, they suited back up Friday as they head to James Madison. For me, I still have to go around the Beltway to get back to the Commonwealth of Virginia. So I'm going to sign off here from College Park. I got a long ride home. This is Marcus Washington from MTC Media.